What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko podcast. I am DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, of course, it's another WWE podcast, but it's something a lot of people have been waiting for, especially since our Golden Era podcast. But we couldn't do it right away because we needed to also talk about New Generation. That, of course, is the Attitude Era. What an era in the WWE/WWF, which, of course, depending on how you would say it, for me, I would recognize it as pretty much from 1998 to 2001, although an acceptable answer would be like 97 to early 02. But nonetheless, Attitude Era, we're finally here. Crazy era, huge landscape, and not only WWE, but all of professional wrestling, especially with the Monday Night Wars. I mean, there's a lot that I can say, but MD, what do you got to say about the Attitude Era?
Yeah, the Attitude Era is arguably one of the best times in wrestling. Of course, people have their own preferences, but very, very good. A lot of super iconic characters or wrestlers to come out of this era. Some that are still in the company today, some that are still in the business today. I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for it because it is basically when I started watching wrestling and collecting like VHS tapes and like catching up on stuff that I necessarily wasn't like old enough for when at the time of it actually happening. But yeah, super amazing and excited about this one because there's a lot of really great stuff from the Attitude Era.
I guess I should mention for this podcast, we're going to be talking about the Attitude Era as terms to kind of the main stars. We've been doing that for both the Golden Era and the New Generation Era. So now we're talking about the Attitude Era, and I'm sure a lot of people can think of different wrestlers. There's a lot of pops for the Attitude Era, so there are only a certain amount that we're kind of going to be talking about as terms to individual superstars, but there's no better way to kick off, obviously, than to talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Victoria, Texas, 252 pounds, six-time WWE champion, two-time Intercontinental champion, a four-time tag team champion with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Dude Love, and The Undertaker, once $1 million champion, winner of the 1996 King of the Ring, and is the only three-time Royal Rumble winner in 97, 98, and 2001. He's the fifth Triple Crown champion and is a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2009. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think realistically, like his feud with Vince McMahon is arguably the most relatable storyline in the history of wrestling because everyone can relate to being like a worker and then absolutely hating your boss. That's literally the storyline. And everyone could relate to that, and especially Stone Cold kind of being this badass that just all he does is drink beer and talk smack. So the storyline was absolutely amazing. It propelled professional wrestling even to the point where they were getting like 10 million views on Monday Night Raw each week. So that's pretty insane. You don't really get that nowadays. But what do you got to say about the man himself, Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Texas Rattlesnake? And even you can mention at this point some of your favorite matches from Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'll mention mine after.
Okay, yeah, wow, Stone Cold. He was definitely one of my favorite when I was very little. I loved watching him, and he was just so hilarious, of course. A badass is the perfect way to explain him. He was crazy. And yeah, like DK said, like being able to just like drink and yell at your boss and do all these things that Stone Cold did was really cool. And of course, he is super iconic, probably on a lot of people's Mount Rushmore, so to speak. So yeah, Stone Cold's awesome. Matches, I mean, there's a ton of different great Stone Cold matches, of course. Anything with The Rock. I'm trying to think of like specific matches. Of course, there's Brett. Is that the match that I'm thinking of? Is that the one where Stone Cold passes out? Yeah, Stone Cold and Brett when he passes out. That's a crazy match. Mankind in there with Stone Cold, of course, is good too.
So the first one I did write down was Stone Cold versus Bret Hart from WrestleMania 13, the infamous double turn. We talked about that on the New Generation podcast when we talked about Bret propelled Stone Cold Steve Austin to being able to carry the company throughout the Attitude Era. The one I had also after is him versus Shawn Michaels at the next WrestleMania 14, which was the night that Stone Cold first won his WWE Championship. I mean, Shawn was already on his way out because of the back injury anyway, so it was a great kind of passing of the torch, I guess. And then, of course, The Rock, and specifically specifically, I wrote down all 3 WrestleMania matches from 15, 17, and 19 because they all have some significance towards it to where like, oh, that was the 15 match, that was this. 15 was basically kind of the story of continuing with McMahon and all that, and how McMahon's guy was The Rock, and so now you have Stone Cold chasing for the title, and then he was able to win it. And then with 17, it was infamous because of Austin's heel turn that had him align with McMahon, so that was crazy. And then 19 was awesome for the sake that they were building up the fact that The Rock lost both matches to Stone Cold, and the one thing he needed to do left before he can basically call it a career is beat him at WrestleMania, in which he did beat him, and it was for the longest time until the Kevin Owens match, Stone Cold's last professional wrestling match. So all 3 matches have a significance towards them to where I don't know if you can really like rank them from like worst to best, because you can easily be like, okay, 15 for the sake of the first one, or you can say 19 because that was Stone Cold's technically actual last match. And then I also, for the sake of non-WrestleMania matches, I have his match against The Undertaker at SummerSlam 98. I remember looking at, you can even search it on Google, the poster for it, where it gives off like this King Kong vibe, I believe, where like there's, because they were in New York City. And then as terms to the Funko Pops, because of course we are a Funko related podcast at the same time, I do have the list of Stone Cold Steve Austin Pops listed here. First off, the very first one, number 5 in the set. And then there was also the remake of that same number, but it was for promotion of the WWE 2K16 game. So there was like the 2K 316 or whatever it is on his jacket to make it a little bit different. That was a GameStop exclusive. Number 84, Stone Cold with the championship title, I believe is the Smoke and Skull. And then number 89 is him with 2 titles. That was a 7-Eleven exclusive. There's also the in-ring moments, or as they call it, a 2-pack with him and The Rock from Monday Night Raw in the Ruthless Aggression era. And then the newest Funko Pop, and as part of the Rides lineup, is him with the Zamboni from that infamous moment on Monday Night Raw. Although I will mention for that, and I don't know why they did it, even though in the recent post they did on social media, they did acknowledge it as a Zamboni. On the box, it's called an ice machine. What the was Funko thinking, calling it an ice machine? Like, what? Like, yeah, for the most part, there is a lot of cool Stone Cold Steve Austin Pops, and I'm sure there's obviously going to be more in the near future, especially when you get into some of those either in-ring moments or just moments in general involving Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, the Stone Cold Pops are pretty badass. I do have the GameStop exclusive one, and I believe that was probably the first ever WWE Pop that I bought, was probably that one. But yeah, they're really cool. It's awesome that we're getting different stuff like the 2-packs, as well as the pop rides from some of these more infamous moments that are really cool, especially for the Attitude Era when we're seeing just crazy stuff like that.
All right, so now moving on to basically when it comes to the Mount Rushmore, it's the person that kind of ties with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, we got to talk about The Rock, Miami, Florida, 260 pounds, 8-time WWE champion, 2-time WCW champion. That's, of course, during the Invasion. 2-time Intercontinental champion, 5-time tag team champions, 3 times with Mankind, once with Undertaker, and once with Chris Jericho. The winner of the 2000 Royal Rumble, which some people may say it wasn't actually The Rock, it should have been Big Show, and is the 6th Triple Crown champion. The Rock is absolutely amazing. I know there's a lot of people that like, they'll be like, oh, like who is the better of the two between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin? And not gonna lie, I kind of like Rock better. And it's for the sake of how entertaining he was on the mic and especially his in-ring skill. Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously he was an amazing mic worker, but there's something about Rock that just every segment he was involved with, no matter who it was with, is just absolutely just pure gold genius. Even with like some unpopular wrestlers, I guess I would say, I actually just watched the clip the other day, is the segment he did with the Hurricane in the Ruthless Aggression era, where he actually sold it like Hurricane was flying because they added the sound effect and they ended up having that match. And yeah, there's like, Rock has done so many, even like post Attitude Era, like when you think of, let's say, the PG era, the whole segment involving Vicky Guerrero and doing the cover of Eric Clapton's song, like, is so amazing. Rock is awesome. Every time The Rock is there, I don't know if there's ever really been a time that I can think of that like it was disappointing to see The Rock, besides maybe helping Roman Reigns win the 2015 Royal Rumble. But besides that, just Rock himself, like, it's always so good to see The Rock, at least in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, lots of people will say Stone Cold's better than Rock. but I think The Rock is better than Stone Cold.
Yeah, The Rock is amazing. He's easily one of the best, if not the best, mic workers of all time in WWE. I mean, just the way he was able to be entertaining, he was able to kick your ass mentally with what he's saying to you. I mean, obviously, there's the like, it doesn't matter what your name is, and just like how he could make stuff rhyme and make stuff hilarious and never trip over his words while like speaking so fast is just crazy. And then of course his in-ring work is just as good. I mean, he's so good. And yeah, some of his feuds too were just really, really amazing. Of course, going back to him and Stone Cold, which they're like the two faces of the Attitude Era. Personally, I do like Stone Cold a bit better, but The Rock is just something else. He's amazing. And like DK said, like coming out of the Attitude Era and us seeing The Rock doing some other stuff. Of course, there's the matches with Cena, but just seeing The Rock is always electrifying. Of course, that is the word that he always uses, but it's very true. You know that it's going to be a good show when you can hear that opening for his theme song with If You Can Smell What The Rock Is Cooking. You know that you're going to get a great segment and it should be a hilarious show for the most part. So yeah, The Rock's amazing. So let's talk about some of those pops.
Well, I got to mention about matches before the pops. Yes, he's had some great feuds, but as terms to matches, of course, I won't repeat about the Stone Cold ones because I already mentioned it there. But one we mentioned on our Golden Era podcast is his match with Hollywood Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Of course, his match with Cena, specifically at WrestleMania 28. I don't want to talk about WrestleMania 29 because, of course, we know that original once in a lifetime, as it was billed as, was just so great, especially because I don't know how many people actually thought that The Rock was actually going to win that and not John Cena, because they thought The Rock was going to be gone after that. Non-WrestleMania matches, once again, I wanted to put those over. Him versus Triple H at SummerSlam 98, the same event as the Undertaker match, where it was a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, and that kind of solidified that you knew, like, if there was a time where Stone Cold was gone, it was going to be one of those two guys that was taking Stone Cold's spot as the guy of WWE/WWF at the time. And then speaking of Triple H, once again, is Judgment Day 2000. They had a 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWE title. I believe Triple H had dropped at the previous event to The Rock, and so it was like the rematch. And this was also, I believe, the debut of American Badass Undertaker at the end of the match. So that also plays a part into why I like this match, because I love American Badass Undertaker. And then one of the other modern day matches I should mention is him versus CM Punk at Royal Rumble 2013. The lead up to it was absolutely amazing, especially with Punk being like toe to toe with The Rock when it came to promos, especially talking about your arms are too short to box with God. CM Punk, of course, being an amazing mic worker. Their match at Rumble was pretty cool. They did a rematch in Elimination Chamber. I do wish that it was Cena, Rock, and Punk in a triple threat at Mania, but I mean, without that, we would have never gotten Punk versus Undertaker, which stole the show that night. As terms to the pops, now we'll get into the pops. I think The Rock actually has the most Funko Pops out of all the Attitude Era wrestlers that we're going to be talking about today. The first one being number 3 for the original wave. There's also a couple of number 46 pops, one with the orange shirt, and then there's a black shirt Chase, but then we know the whole story about how they actually mixed that up because of production. So then when the re-release happened, they actually did the right way that time. Then there's the Gold Rock, where it came with the SmackDown Live sticker. Number 78 is Bring It Rock. So he's doing like the whole Bring It pose and he has the shirt on. And then Rock with the WWE title, number 91, Entertainment Earth exclusive. Then they made his debut into pop form, being Rocky Maivia, both a regular and a metallic version exclusive to the Funko shop. And then actually the newest Rock pop, a part of the new wave that kind of just got confirmed by Funko recently, but has been out for a little bit. It's called Final Rock, according to Entertainment Earth. So I wonder, are they commemorating it to like his final match technically with Eric Rowan, 6 seconds? I don't exactly know, but it's not too different from like the other current day Rock pops that they did. They unfortunately did an Artist Series pop, number 44 in that lineup, exclusive to Walmart, and then an in-ring moments with John Cena at WrestleMania 28. Like I mentioned, I mean, that match was just electrifying. Actually, you were at my place watching the pay-per-view, I believe, for that event, WrestleMania 28. So that was an awesome night. The Rock pops, for the most part, are pretty decent. I don't know what I would choose as a favorite, but I can tell you that my least favorite would be that artist series, because there was definitely no point in making that.
Yeah, I mean, the artist series one is a little ridiculous. Let's just stick the bull all over them and call it a day. That pop's not great, but there are some really good ones. And I have owned a few of the different rock pops. I do remember that whole mix up with the rock pop where he has, of course, his like shorter hair where he's not completely bald, and then the orange shirt and the sunglasses. And I remember finding it and then like looking it up on like the Funko app or whatever. And I'm like, wait a sec, this is the Chase. Why is there no Chase sticker? And then coming to realize it's the whole fiasco of the mix up. So yeah, I do really enjoy that pop. I think what they've done so far is pretty good. I don't know like how much more Funko really could do to advance the rock pops.
Next superstar we're going to be talking about, I briefly talked about him in one of the Rock matches. That is the Game, the Cerebral Assassin, the King of Kings. It's Triple freaking H. Greenwich, Connecticut, 255 pounds, 9-time WWE champion, 5-time World Heavyweight champion, 5-time Intercontinental champion, a tag team champion with Stone Cold Steve Austin, a unified tag team champions with the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, European champion, winner of the 1997 King of the Ring, 2-time Royal Rumble winner, once in 2002 and the other in 2016, the 7th Triple Crown champion, the 2nd Grand Slam champion, and is actually a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2019 as a member of D-Generation X. Triple H, I mean, there's lots to say about Triple H. What an evolution of Triple H as terms to his entire career. When he debuted in the New Generation era as, well, it was Triple H, but Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the full form of Triple H, the Connecticut Blue Blood, and then he evolved to this like degenerate with Shawn Michaels, and then you see him into the Game, and then the King of Kings, and the Cerebral Assassin. You see him have his own faction after D-Generation X with Evolution, and then you see him with like the Authority storyline. Like, that guy has done so much in WWE. There's actually a cool video that I can't remember who it was that made it, but it's like Wrestling is Wrestling. You know what video I'm talking about with that one?
Wrestling is wrestling.
Yeah, something like that. So that video like perfectly explains kind of like the career of Triple H. Yeah, Triple H is awesome. He is so good in the ring. He's one of those guys that are known for, like, even if the person was so garbage at wrestling, he'll make the person that maybe garbage at wrestling actually have a good match. And he's so good at also being very protective of his opponents. There's that infamous story about there's a triple threat match. I think it was SummerSlam of 2000. Him, Rock, and Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle got concussed because the announce table broke mid pedigree, head right into the concrete there, and Angle was out of it. But Triple H kind of protected him to the point to where you couldn't really tell, but you could at the same time that he was concussed and was out of it. So Triple H just being one of those guys that just puts his opponents over himself to make sure their safety is more important than his. And I think that's what Triple H kind of leaves behind as terms of his legacy. Unfortunately, he did have to retire because of his heart conditions and having to have a pacemaker. So like if he were to take a bump, I mean, that pacemaker is going off, and it's just like, oh, not good news. But yeah, everything that Triple H has contributed to WWE, including today being basically the head of creative. I mean, what a guy, a GOAT.
Yeah, Triple H is a absolute GOAT in the company. I mean, like DK said, the evolution of his character, like he mentioned with Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, it basically shows that whole story. That video is hilarious. I would definitely suggest going and checking that video out at some point because it's worth the watch. I've watched it so many times over. And yeah, Triple H is just amazing. He's done just about everything you can do in the WWE. He's so funny too. Like, some of his funny moments are absolutely hilarious. One that I can think of is, I can't remember exactly who was in the match, but he basically takes like a bump and he like no sells it. And he's like, it's like a good like minute or so where he's like kind of like shaking it off, and then he finally shakes it off, goes to walk, and then collapses. That's a hilarious Triple H moment. Of course, there's all the different moments with DX, whether it is like the original group of DX or the revitalized just Shawn Michaels and Triple H in the Ruthless Aggression era. That's hilarious as well. So he plays this like menacing character, but can also be so funny. His in-ring work is amazing. He has such a great set of moves. It's so cool. I love the different things that he does, and his pairing with Shawn Michaels was so perfect because you have this like kind kind of more like ground and pound wrestler in Triple H, and then you have kind of like the high flyer in HBK, which was so awesome. Triple H is definitely one of the GOATs for sure. I mean, he's another contender for the Mount Rushmore, depending on what you like, of course, with wrestling.
As terms to matches for the game Triple H, there is a little bit that I wrote down. I don't want to write too many matches because we do got to go through quite a bit of superstars as terms to this podcast. But first off, as terms to like early on, like as Triple H, not Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Hell in a Cell against Cactus Jack at No Way Out 2000. This basically was initially Mick Foley's retirement match before he came back like 30 days later for that fatal four-way match at WrestleMania. Pretty much anything he does with Shawn Michaels is gold, whether it's tag teaming with him or that lengthy 2-year feud in the Ruthless Aggression era from 02 to 04 is some great storytelling right from the beginning, where he attacks Shawn Michaels when they go to reform DX all the way until that last match in Hell in a Cell in 2004. It's just like so amazing. And then I got to mention, as terms to more of the modern time within the last like 10 years, both of his matches with Undertaker at WrestleMania 27 and then of course 28, Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. Some of the best storytelling I have ever seen. Once again, MD was there with me. Our buddy Robbie D was there with me. And I think my neighbor at the time was there with me too. We were all watching this, and the amount of times that we actually kind of believed that Triple H could have been the one to end the streak that match. It was so good. As terms to Funko Pops though, so the OG Triple H number 9, number 52 is the original Skull King Triple H with a chase where I believe the chase had the crown on, and then there was like no crown for the common, which was kind of pointless. Number 99, which is D Generation X Triple H, I believe is a pop and pin bundle exclusive to GameStop. And then recently released, actually a part of the new wave, is a pop deluxe of Triple H Skull King, number 139 in the WWE lineup, which I think that was pretty cool. I wish they would have done that instead of doing the common and chase that they originally did. And then as terms to multi-packs or moments, Triple H has a couple of them. They did a 2-pack with him and Ronda Rousey, which I felt that was a little bit pointless in my opinion. The DX 2-pack, where it is basically Ruthless Aggression, Triple H and Shawn Michaels in a multi-pack exclusive to Walmart, I believe. And then what we talked about, not only as terms of Triple H matches, but on the New Generation pod, is the in-ring moments between Triple H and Shawn Michaels from SummerSlam 2002. Shawn Michaels is wearing the jeans in that match, and just, yeah, that match was absolutely amazing. And the Triple H pops for the most part have been pretty decent, and would be really cool to still see some more Triple H pops be made.
Yeah, there are some pretty cool Triple H pops. There are some as well that I don't entirely love. I don't think it really gets the like Triple H like factor right through. I don't know what they can do to change that. But for the most part, the Triple H pops are pretty cool. I would like to see some more because I'm sure there's a ton of different moments that we could get for Triple H in pop form.
So let's move over to the next superstar, very huge part of the Attitude Era. That is Mick Foley. Long Island, New York, 287 pounds, 3-time WWE champion, 8-time tag team champions, 3 times with The Rock, twice with Kane, once with Stone Cold Steve Austin, once with Chainsaw Charlie, and then once with Al Snow. Former hardcore champion, and then a part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2013. Mick Foley, a underrated GOAT, because I don't know how many people would put him on a Mount Rushmore, but for everything that he has done for this business and how much he has put his body through hell. And speaking of hell, we will talk about that match in a little bit, because you cannot talk about Mick Foley and like forget about that match. Mick Foley has done so many things, whether it was as Mankind and what he's done inside Hell in a Cell and stuff like that, as Dude Love, which I will mention is my favorite face of Foley out of the 3. I know not a lot of people talk about that. And then Cactus Jack, which was a huge fan favorite going into WWE, considering he used that gimmick in both WCW and ECW. So that was a well-known gimmick there. So really cool that depending on what storyline he was involved with, he can easily switch to a different character, especially when he had feuded with Triple H near like the first stint of his career, that he would be Cactus Jack. And then at one point he would be Dude Love. We got to see heel Dude Love with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which may be a match that I actually listed down on my list. But nonetheless, what do you got to say about good old Mick Foley?
Mick Foley, I love him so much. I always have. One of my favorite matches of all time is actually a Mick Foley match, that being versus Edge in the hardcore match at WrestleMania 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so Mick Foley's awesome. I've read one of his books. I think it was Have a Nice Day is the one that I've read. Or maybe it was the Hardcore Diaries. I don't remember. But I do own both of those books, so I should definitely read the other one. But Mick Foley, I mean, just insane. Like DK said, like what he's put his body through to entertain us. I mean, some of the most crazy things in hardcore matches. Of course, like DK said, you can't not mention the Hell in the Cell match where, I mean, he takes a bump off of the cell, takes a bump through the cell, just unreal. And one match that I definitely remember, I believe it was versus The Rock, where I think it's an I Quit match.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a match that I love. The Rock ends up putting him in like the forklift. So crazy. And Mick Foley has been around out of the Attitude Era, which is nice. I mean, obviously there's like the Commissioner Foley, but I don't know. Mick Foley's just this lovable character, and even in real life, like he's just such a great guy. Of course, with the different gimmicks that he had, was so funny, especially like when it comes to like the Rumble, where he'd like show up and now he's Dude Love. So hilarious, and I love all of the gimmicks. I think my favorite is though just Mick Foley himself. I just love the guy.
That's crazy because when it came to like the matches that I should have wrote, and I guess I'll mention it now as one of the matches, the 1998 Royal Rumble, where he did appear as all three gimmicks at one point.
Yeah.
So he took up three spots, being Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Mankind, which was a crazy moment, and I don't think that will ever be duplicated. There's no one that's going to have like three gimmicks and be able to do that at that point. But I guess I'll mention that match. But the first one I did write down because I went like numerical order as terms of years is him versus Undertaker at SummerSlam 96, because they were feuding, and this is where it leads to Paul Bearer turning on the Undertaker. Him versus Steve Austin at Unforgiven 1998, which was as Dude Love. He turned heel and did the match at Unforgiven and then also Over the Edge. Then of course him versus Undertaker, King of the Ring 98, not the main event of the show, and it just stole the show. So the match that was the main event, just like no one really cared about, because no one was topping what happened between Undertaker and Mankind, which I believe the 25th anniversary was this year for that match. Yep, the I Quit match, Royal Rumble 1999, where The Rock won because Mick Foley didn't actually say I quit. He ended up using like a recording of like him saying I quit on like a Monday Night Raw to make it sound like he said I quit, but he didn't actually quit. Yeah, you already mentioned about Edge at WrestleMania 22, which I kind of figured, but the match that I'm going to end off talking about is in my, like, I guess if I had a Mount Rushmore of favorite matches, it's easily not only my top 10, but probably top 5 favorite matches of all time. It's him as Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton for the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash 2004, which took place in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So cool that it happened in Canada. Just everything about that match made Randy Orton for sure. And especially like I can even like vision the whole RKO into the thumbtacks, and you got Jerry Lawler with this like high pitched commentary. And at first he's like, oh my God. And then you have the pan view of his back filled with thumbtacks. And he's like, oh my God. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, who just put these matches over the edge in a good way. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, that match, like, oh my God, I love watching that match. Easily one of the best matches I have ever seen. But nonetheless, in terms of Funko Pops, first off, number 35 in the set, the original Mick Foley pop, which is a pretty sweet pop. The Mankind pop, number 103, GameStop exclusive. And it's this like original attire that he debuted in. So it's all brown and not what we are used to seeing with like the white dress shirt, which we'll get into a little bit. 105 is Cactus Jack, and he's holding the trash can with, I believe, a Royal Rumble 2000 pin, which is really cool, exclusive to GameStop. They made Dude Love, number 109. Of course, I own that one. And then last but not least, we have the 2-pack of The Rock versus Mankind, which a lot of people, it's a big misconception. They think it's a Rock and Sock 2-pack. It's not. And you can tell also because of The Rock's attire, because he's wearing that attire where it's all black and he's got the shirt on because he had the pectoral muscle surgery, so they had to hide the scarring. And it's during that where we talked about the I Quit match at Royal Rumble. So it's not quite a Rock and Sock 2-pack, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did that in the near future. And of course, Mick Foley is wearing the, what you normally think of like the white dress shirt at that point with the tie on also.
Mick Foley pops are sweet. I do own the original Mick Foley one. That is such an awesome pop. And I've debated on if I want to sell it or not because I am starting to purge a lot of my WWE pops. But that one just has like sentimental value to me. I really enjoy that pop. OG Mankind, that's pretty sweet. It's cool to see that attire. But then, of course, we did want to see the white dress shirt as well. And I'm glad we got that as well. The Dude Love pop is awesome as well. I did actually buy that pop for DK for his birthday. I think that would have been last year. The Cactus Jack one's really cool as well. I love the pop and pin bundles that Funko is doing because you get these really awesome pins for some different pay-per-views, mostly WrestleManias. But yeah, all of the like Mick Foley pops are just perfect. I mean, they can't really get much better. I would like to see some more because I'm sure there's different things that we could see. Maybe one day getting like a pop town, I guess it could be, of the Cell, Mankind kind of going over with Undertaker on it as well, would just be insane. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that at some point. But yeah, I love these pops. They're all just like very, very well done. I don't think there's one that's like not good.
All right, so this next superstar we're talking about, and I believe it is one of the last superstars we're gonna. It was this superstar and two that I was stuck on trying to figure out which one I'm going to use because a couple of them is like, okay, you can talk about on Ruthless Aggression. So I decided this superstar I'm going to talk about here on the Attitude Era podcast. It's gotta be Kane. Kane is what we're going to be talking about right now. Parts unknown, 323 pounds, WWE champion, world heavyweight champion, two-time Intercontinental champion, 9-time world tag team champions, twice with Mankind, twice with The Undertaker, twice with X-Pac, once with the Hurricane, once with RVD, and once with the Big Show. Then the two-time tag team champion, just like the regular one, once with Big Show and once with Daniel Bryan. Then former ECW champion, former WCW champion with Undertaker during the Invasion angle, former hardcore champion, 24/7 champion, technically as Mayor Glenn Jacobs, but still Kane, 8th Triple Crown champion, 3rd Grand Slam champion, and part of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2021. Kane is an interesting character, an amazing character. Crazy to see the different sides of Kane, whether it is the sadistic we see of Kane during the early ages, or just kind of like the comedy style of Kane that we got during like PG era with like Daniel Bryan, or even you kind of got a little bit in the Ruthless Aggression era before the unmasking. But Kane is a crazy character that is so memorable. And yeah, what a way to introduce him into the WWE, interfering in that Hell in a Cell match during the New Generation era. It actually was the first Hell in a Cell match with Triple H with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. And then yeah, that's gotta be Kane. Vince McMahon's calling right there on commentary. It's so crazy. Like, Kane was a huge part of my childhood, but Kane is a sadistic man when it came to his character, especially when he unmasked. I mean, there's a lot of things there are a lot of memories that Kane has done. And I mean, already a Hall of Famer. He's definitely going to be a 2-time Hall of Famer at some point when they do Brothers of Destruction going in the Hall of Fame. He's once again kind of an underrated GOAT.
Yeah, I would definitely say Kane is definitely underrated as one of those big guys. He was amazing. And it was really cool to see like the different versions of Kane. Of course, his masked attire was really cool. And there were so many different patterns and looks that were just so menacing. And then, of course, after the Attitude Era, going into Ruthless Aggression Era, where he basically becomes unmasked and then basically shaves the rest of his head bald and does the like almost like the barbed wire red pants. I love that Kane so much. I love that attire. But yeah, Kane, super awesome. And of course, he did have like comedy moments as well. One of my favorite Kane moments ever was in the Ruthless Aggression era, and I've been trying to find a clip of it. Every once in a while I'll look and I cannot find a clip of this moment, but it's basically a segment backstage between him and Big Show. Kane like goes into this like janitor's closet and he gets stuck in there, and then Big Show's like trying to open the door and he can't open the door, and like Big Show, I think he starts crying because Kane's stuck in the closet, and then like Kane like shows up behind Big Show and he's like, oh yeah, there was like a back door. And I just remember that, and I thought it was the funniest back in the day. But Kane, yeah, is so massive and such an awesome character, of course, with The Undertaker. Their feud, unreal between them two, and Paul Bearer, of course, kind of flipping between Undertaker and Kane. And just such an interesting character to bring on to kind of expand the already amazing Undertaker. But Kane himself, of course, he's done so much in the business and he's just unreal.
At first, I don't. When you said ruthless aggression era and moments, I thought you were instantly thinking Kane Rooney. Kane Rooney was such a funny moment, especially. I think that was the same night that he came back from having, I think it was like a tricep injury, and he like leaned the out. Like he was not like he was massive, but he wasn't like as muscular as he was prior to that. But as terms to matches, of course, I think the earliest match you got to mention is Kane versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 14. I mean, that storyline leading up to it where Undertaker did not want to fight his brother, and then they ended up fighting. I believe at that point it was like the first time someone ever kicked out of a tombstone. Match I also wanted to put here is the 2001 Royal Rumble match, because Kane for the longest time had the record for the most eliminations with 11 until it was broken by, I believe it was Roman after, and then that was broken by, I think, a tie of Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, and I think that still holds up to today. One that I forgot about, and I did a little research last night, was there was a match in the Ruthless Aggression era where Kane was the tag team champions, where I believe with Hurricane, and somehow Hurricane wasn't able to show up, or he got injured or something, and he defended it by himself in like a fatal 4-way ladder match, and he still won the match. And that match was such a great match to see. Him versus Triple H at No Mercy 2002, although the storyline was a little bit awkward because Katie Vick, if you know that storyline, that was a little bit cringy. But the idea of the IC title and the World Heavyweight title on the line, winner takes all. Unfortunately, Triple H won that. I wish it was Kane at that time. And then going into when Kane had unmasked his match with RVD at SummerSlam 2003, that was the first match he did. And then the series of matches he had at Unforgiven and Survivor Series 2003 with Shane McMahon, absolutely nuts. The Unforgiven match, I believe, was when the match, it was a last man standing. Shane jumped off the set and he went through the stage, and Kane won that way. And then their following match was an ambulance match, and then obviously Kane won both matches, but still, like, respect to Shane McMahon for that. The Money in the Bank ladder match, the very first one, because he was involved with that, so I thought I'd mention that. And then as a recent one, because I can't really think of many recent matches for some reason that I think could be like Kane's best matches. So I actually put, for storyline's sake, Team Authority versus Team Cena from Survivor Series 2014. It was corporate Kane at the time, but the whole Survivor Series match where it actually ended up with like one member each, and now had the debut, I believe, of Sting, costing, I believe it was Seth Rollins, and Dolph Ziggler got the win for Team Cena. So that was pretty decent. And as terms to Funko Pops, there is only one Funko Pop, and it's of Kane in Ruthless Aggression era, which I would have never thought that would have been the Kane attire that they chose. I thought they would have went with OG Kane attire. They could have even went with current Kane attire, where it's just like the red mask and his attire that's a little meh in today's age, but like doing my favorite Kane attire of all time, where he debuted the half mask, was awesome. And that's why I own that pop in my collection, because it's my favorite Kane attire. So I was really glad that they ended up doing that. Otherwise, I don't think I would have had a Kane pop in my collection, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that Kane pop is pretty dang sweet. I really hope we do see a few more different Kane pops, because there's a bunch of really cool attires. And then I would love to see like unmasked Kanes, maybe even the match where he did the unmasking, and you could have like a chase version with the mask on and mask off. I think that would be really cool. There's a bunch. I would love to see like a glow in the dark Kane that has some fire around him. I think that would be really sweet as well. There's so many different ideas. One Kane pop is definitely not enough.
All right, so the next superstar that I have listed here, I knew I had to talk about him in the Attitude Era because he made his debut at this point, the Ayatollah of rock and roller. It's Chris Jericho, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, 227 pounds, the first undisputed WWE champion, former world heavyweight champion, two-time WCW champion. Of course, during the invasion angle, they would have never gave him that opportunity in WCW. 9-time Intercontinental champion, 2-time United States champion, 3-time World Tag Team champions, once with Chris Benoit. I'm sure it's our podcast, I'm allowed to say that name. The Rock and Christian, and a 2-time Unified Tag Team champions with Edge and The Big Show. He's the 9th Triple Crown champion and the 4th Grand Slam champion. Chris Jericho. Yeah, he is a GOAT. He is seriously such a GOAT, and there's a reason that he's still wrestling today, because no one can reinvent themselves over and over again like Chris Jericho and still be as great now as they were back in 1999 when you did the whole Millennium Countdown. Like, Jericho is so amazing. He's done so many funny moments. He's done so many like shocking moments. Even today, I mean, he's in AEW, of course, but he still is creating those cool moments. I think a lot of AEW moments I could think of involve Chris Jericho. I mean, he was their first champion. So like Jericho, no matter where he was, WWE, New Japan doing the painkiller gimmick, AEW right now, Les Champions, a little bit of the bubbly, like Jericho is he's seriously such a goat.
Yeah, he is another goat for sure. And like to still go at it the way that he is just crazy. I mean, one of the best debuts of all time in wrestling is got to be Jericho. I mean, Raw is Jericho. So awesome. I loved it so much. Jericho was awesome. And like DK said, how he reinvented himself so much. He had so many different looks over the years, whether it's his long hair with the ponytail, which I used to love recreating that when I had my long hair as well. Of course, the short hair. I do remember back in, I guess it would have been like 2008, 2009-ish. Jericho is just so cool. What an amazing wrestler. I just love his gimmicks were awesome. And his style, his look, his moveset, everything about Jericho was just so cool.
Jericho's always making awesome debuts and he's always making awesome returns. But speaking of awesome things, his matches. There's not a lot that I wrote down, but of course, like, I mean, there's so many Jericho matches you can think of. The first one I want to talk about, because it's a unique stipulation, is a triple threat match with him, Kurt Angle, and once again, Chris Benoit. Allowed to say that name because it's our podcast. So WrestleMania 2000, and it was for both the European Championship and the Intercontinental Championship. Kurt Angle walked into that match both as champion, and basically the first fall was for one title, the next fall was for another title, and I believe that night, I think Jericho won the European Championship and Benoit won the Intercontinental Championship. So it was a unique way of making a match where you didn't have to have two separate matches for those titles and take up two spots while not having a wrestler work twice in one night. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, of course, you got to mention about like both his matches with The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin to make him the undisputed champion for the first time in pro wrestling history. A lot of his matches with Shawn Michaels, but more specifically, the match with him and Michaels at WrestleMania 19. That was awesome, especially the ending where like he goes to hug him and then he just low blows him after he lost. Like, that was so good. Another more modern day match is like the Jericho of like the I'm the best in the world at everything that I do, short hair, business suit kind of Jericho. He had a match with Rey Mysterio for the IC title, mask versus title, I think that's what it was. And basically in that match, Jericho goes to rip off Rey's mask and he has another mask underneath. So he completely tricked him. And then I think Rey won that match. So that was awesome. And then I guess, yeah, more of the like recent Jericho before he left WWE to do like New Japan and AEW is his match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania 32. So I thought that was really cool to see kind of like this guy that we knew for so long in TNA. He's now in WWE and he's going to face what seemed to be at the time a WWE lifer in Chris Jericho. So that was awesome. And then I guess I'll mention the Funko Pops, of course. There's only two of them. There is Jericho from 2016, 2017, and he has the list of Jericho. Talk about a great moment. You just made the list. One is a blue attire, I believe, exclusive to FYE. So nothing too different from the other Chris Jericho, although I wish we would have gotten way more Chris Jericho pops while he was still in WWE. Jericho maybe like comes back to WWE for even like being inducted to the Hall of Fame, because you know at some point he is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he definitely is. And the pops are okay. You just made the list. Jericho is hilarious. I remember when that pop came out, I thought it was just the funniest thing. But yeah, I would definitely love to see more Jericho pops. Definitely like a debut Jericho pop would be really, really sweet. I'd love to see that. But there's a bunch of different attires.
And I guess the last superstars, I put an S on that we'll talk about, is a tag team. Attitude Era, one thing that was great about it is their tag team division was so stacked at that time. But there is one tag team that we have to talk about. That is the Hardy Boyz. Cameron, North Carolina, combined weight of 451 pounds. Together, and I'll actually mention both their accomplishments together and separate. So together, Hardy Boyz, Matt and Jeff Hardy, 6-time world tag team champions with each other, Raw tag team champions, SmackDown tag team champions, and WCW tag team champions. Matt Hardy's accomplishments: former United States champion, European champion, Cruiserweight champion, Hardcore champion, ECW champion, champion, tag team champion with MVP, a Raw tag team champion with Bray Wyatt, and then the winner of the 2018 Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal Trophy. And then with Jeff Hardy, former WWE champion, 2-time World Heavyweight champion, 5-time Intercontinental champion, United States champion, European champion, light heavyweight champion, 3-time hardcore champion, 18th Triple Crown champion, and the 9th Grand Slam champion. The Hardy Boys. I mean, crazy, especially Jeff. That guy was nuts, jumping off ladders and going through tables. And talk about another guy who's been through so much hell and all the unfortunate legal stuff he's been through. And then Matt, he's been through some hard times also, but he was able to really recover when it came to right around the 2010s, in the mid 2010s, and was able to really for the longest time, you knew that Jeff was, I guess, the more popular brother from all the stuff that he was doing, and he was accomplishing more. And not a lot of people are talking about Matt Hardy until he brought the broken gimmick into Impact Wrestling, TNA, and then he brought it over to WWE as Woken. So, I mean, they're kind of up there together. I know that I've even noticed now as of late, they are really winding down on their careers, and I know soon they're probably going to hang it up because they're just not the same Hardy Boys as they once were in the Attitude Era. I mean, their bodies have been broken down for a lot of stuff. First ballot Hall of Famers, at least together.
The Hardy Boys. So cool. Team Extreme. I mean, just so awesome. I loved the Hardys so much. Jeff, of course, loved him, which is surprising considering my name is Matt. You'd think I would love Matt Hardy, but I do love Matt Hardy. I think they're both amazing for their different ways. It is cool that there is such a tight tag team that was also able to each do their own singles work as well. Them with some, of course, other tag teams in the Attitude Era, the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian. They really changed tag team wrestling back in the Attitude Era and made it something that was just so cool. Tag team wrestling was wicked. Now that they're in AEW, that's pretty cool to see too. But like DK said, they're definitely getting to the end here, and eventually they're going to have to hang them up.
As terms to matches, I mean, this is how you got to kick off with the Hardy Boys and matches. They're trifecta of triple threat tag matches with the Dudley Boys and Edge and Christian. I mean, the first one at WrestleMania 2000, a lot of people think that was the first time that was TLC. No, it wasn't. It was a triple threat ladder match, but it just so happens that because there was tables involved, and of course there was chairs, that they thought that that was TLC, especially because that was when Jeff Hardy did the swanton off the ladder through Bubba Ray Dudley through the table. And of course, that's actually the match that people remember about when it comes to WrestleMania 2000, even more than the main event. Then SummerSlam 2000, their second match, is when TLC happens. And I think it was actually Mick Foley who coined the phrase TLC. And then, of course, WrestleMania 17, that's the one everyone remembers, especially with Edge jumping off the ladder, doing the spear to Jeff Hardy. One of those iconic moments that people still think, hey, how many times do you practice that? No, you can't practice something like that beforehand. That's ridiculous. As terms to separate matches, I wanted to kind of separate Matt and Jeff also. For Matt Hardy specifically, the only one I had listed down was him versus Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 19 for the Cruiserweight title. When it comes to Jeff Hardy, though, first one I could think of is his infamous Undisputed Championship ladder match against The Undertaker on an episode of Monday Night Raw in 2002. You got to mention about the triple threat match with Jeff, Edge, and Triple H at Armageddon in 2008 that had him win his first WWE Championship. The Hardy Boys literally implode, going up against each other. Matt versus Jeff at WrestleMania, where I believe Matt Hardy actually won that match at WrestleMania, and then they would do an I Quit match the next pay-per-view where then Jeff would win. And then, yeah, there's only one Funko Pop of the Hardy Boys, the multi-pack, but it's more of the modern-day Hardy Boys, what they looked like when they came back in 2017. You can even see it with the blonde streak in Matt Hardy's hair within the Funko Pop there. Would have been awesome to get even singular Jeff Hardy pops where you have the face paint, and especially, you know what, Funko, you're good with specifications. You could have done glow in the dark variants because you do get those black light effects with Jeff Hardy's face paint.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see Funko at some point do a black light Jeff Hardy. I think that could be really, really cool. I mean, of course, with the attires that he had, that would be really interesting. I've never even thought of that before until you brought up the glow in the dark. But the 2-pack of the Hardy Boys is pretty good.
All right, so now this is going to be our honorable mention section before talking about what Funko Pops we want to see next in terms of Attitude Era for the WWE lineup. And I'll mention the 3 pops, including 2 of them being the superstars that I kind of teased earlier, where I wanted to mention them in Attitude Era because they've done so much. But then I feel as terms to Ruthless Aggression, they did even just as much or more. Kurt Angle. And then I guess I'll mention the other one. That is, of course, the Rated R superstar, Edge. And then the last, as terms to pops, there is China, who was a huge part of the Attitude Era, of course, a member of D-Generation X, changed the landscape as terms to women's wrestling. I know WWE wasn't really acknowledging her for the longest time because of, professions that she was doing at some point, but just the contributions she did in WWE really propelled the women's division. So I guess now we will talk about pops that we want to see from the Attitude Era. I mean, I have a lot listed down in case like MD mentions like his list, and there's like stuff that like I had listed down also, so I don't have to repeat.
All right, so the first pop that I have on my list here is a pop of Rikishi. I think that a Rikishi pop is needed. I think that it could be so cool. Of course, Rikishi is a bigger boy, so this pop would be very interesting to see how they actually go about making like his legs and how wide this pop would actually be. I really, really want to see a Rikishi pop. I hope it is a thing. I would love to show off a 360 spin of a Rikishi on the channel at some point. I think that that'd be hilarious.
Rikishi, a person that I actually have met in person. I did have Rikishi on my list. I guess I'll say dem cheeks. Let's see how that goes with Funko Pop form.
And then the next pop that I have on my list is Mark Henry. I would really love to see a couple different Mark Henry pops. I would love to see, of course, Attitude Era Mark Henry, but I'd also love to see like the black and silver Mark Henry attire as a Funko Pop as well, where he had kind of like the braided hair. I think that that'd be really sweet as well. And again, another big boy.
Yeah, Mark Henry, like this one's a little bit iffy considering he is also signed with the AEW, so it's not likely anytime soon that he would get a pop. But yeah, like you mentioned, Attitude Era, especially Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry. Imagine a 2-pack, a 3-pack, him, Mae Young in the hand.
So moving on to the next one is the Dudley Boys. I would love for it to be a 3-pack with Spike Dudley as well. I could understand if Funko would just go with a 2-pack. And I'd be interested to see what attire they'd go with, if they would just go with like the gray camo or if they'd go with like the yellow attire. Or like orange. I don't know which one they'd go with, but I'd probably like to keep it like basic as hell and just do the gray attire.
Yeah, I also had the Dudley Boys on my list. I mean, that's kind of a must. And actually, so far is the most likely one to happen because both Devon and Bubba Ray both signed Legends deals with WWE recently. So that could be a likeliness that could happen. They'll probably appear in the next WWE game because most people with Legends contracts, that gives them the opportunity for merchandising deals like Mattel figures and of course the video games and Funko Pops at this point. And the idea I had for it, multi-pack with a chase, the gray attire for the common that you normally see, and do the chase when they first debuted in WWE or what they were in ECW with like the purple tie-dye attire.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great idea for that. And keeping up the theme of tag teams, I got Edge and Christian here. Again, they're both signed with AEW right now, so I don't know the likelihood of seeing any more pops in the near future, but maybe one day we will. I mean, Edge is my favorite wrestler of all time. I've said that on the channel before. And Christian's awesome as well. And together, I think that they could have some really awesome different Funko Pops.
I didn't write this down because I knew 100% you were going to write this down. I was like, he's going to mention Edge and Christian. And then I feel like for that, as terms to a pose, 5-second pose for the pop. Because like, what else would they do?
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to do it that way. And then moving on to the last pop that I have on this list is Scotty 2 Hottie. I was thinking about doing a 2-pack or a 3-pack, but I think I just want a singular Scotty 2 Hottie pop. I think that that'd be really cool. Of course, he wore some pretty crazy attires as well, so that'd be pretty sweet. I would like to maybe see like, I think it was like the baby blue attire that he wore with like that hat, and then have it be flocked. I think that could be really, really cool for a Scotty 2 Hottie pop.
So now I'm going to mention mine. The first one I mentioned here, OG attired Kane. We discussed about this. I mean, the red and black attire. There's many ways they can do this. They can do it just by itself. You can also do a Kane and Paul Bearer 2-pack like they did with Undertaker, but do like non-face painted Paul Bearer. Or you can do an in-ring moments for WrestleMania 14 with The Undertaker. I mean, in a perfect world, it would be Unforgiven 98 where there's the Infernal match and you can have flames around it and make it glow in the dark. But we know that the more memorable match, because it was the first encounter between between Kane and Undertaker was 14.
Yeah, definitely need more Kane pops. I absolutely agree with that. There's so many different versions of Kane that could be done in pop form, and I don't see why they're not taking advantage of it and doing that.
The next one I have here is Kurt Angle, but he's got hair. Obviously, we had more of like closer to retirement Kurt Angle, like the only Kurt Angle, and then they're doing like Ruthless Aggression Kurt Angle, I believe, because I think he's still bald in that pop. But like it would be really cool to just get hair Kurt Angle. I mean, you can even do that with that would be a perfect idea because we kind of teased it earlier. Is if you're doing a rides of the milk truck.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was kind of thinking, is that you get the milk truck and then the hair, and then I can't remember the exact attire that he wore for that.
Next is a multi-pack, and it's the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. This one is iffy because, of course, Billy Gunn is in AEW doing his little thing with the Acclaim there. Scissor Me Daddy. I feel like it's going to happen at some point. It's just not anytime soon, but it will happen. There's no point of adding X-Pac in there to do like a full-on DX multi-pack there.
Yeah, I debated putting them on my list. I think that that'd be really awesome.
Next one I have is a Ministry of Darkness Undertaker when he had the big goatee and like no mustache. And then like, I remember the one entrance he did where he had like the huge wingspan, like that would be really cool. And I remember the theme song that he had for Ministry of Darkness was just so badass. I wouldn't mind another Undertaker pop because I have every single Undertaker pop that Funko currently has, including both of the multi-packs that they did.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of a Ministry of Darkness Undertaker pop, especially if they could do it with the wings. I think that'd be really cool. Even if you do have to pay like more of like the deluxe price if they want to have it be like very spread out and very big. I think that that'd be really, really cool. And I like this version of Undertaker. It is more obscure. Not enough people talk about it. So I think that that would be a really great pop.
And last but not least is a superstar that I bring up so much about why they haven't made a Funko Pop yet of this individual. It's Lita. Where is a Lita pop? For all those times when you're announcing current superstars, or even they've made an Eva Marie pop, but they've never made Lita. You already have two versions of Trish Stratus. You've done China. You've done like so many others. It's time at some point that we get a Lita.
Yeah, I definitely think we need a Lita pop. I would definitely buy a Lita if one came out to go with my Edge pop. I don't think it really matters exactly what version of Lita we get. So yeah, I definitely think that this is a great one, especially to end off on with Lita, because yeah, really, like where is a Lita pop? Why have we not seen one yet? It's got to come soon. It really does.
Anyways, guys, that's going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Podcast. And if you enjoyed our Attitude Era edition of a Funko Podcast, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know some of your favorite Attitude Era superstars and what pops you want to see next. And we hope to see you guys next time on an edition of a Funko Podcast. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
It was me, Austin. It was me all along. Peace in, peace out.